Hello and welcome to episode 8 of season 10 of the EUphoria podcast. I'm Drakos, joined by Caedrel. Our special guest today, none other than Misfits 80 carry Neon, coming off the back of a hot 2-0 week. How's life in the Misfits house? I imagine morale is pretty good right now.
I can't complain to life. I think we're doing pretty good, and yeah, it's nice.
Definitely was a solid week of performances. Reminder, we're available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening if you want to transition. Caedrel, I'll be honest, I don't think either of us were on the Misfits hype train about 2 weeks ago. Both of us were skeptics.
Yeah, because a lot of your guys' wins just in the early starts of the split, you either weren't winning or you were just making miraculous comebacks, against Mad Lions when they're diving on tier 2 when the game's lost. But then Zanzara came in, and ever since he's joined, you're 4-0, I think, right? You're undefeated. It feels like it's a Zanzara meta. A lot of his champs looks like very comfortable in them. And Zlatan looked more of like I need resources, I'll play a carry jungle playstyle. Whereas Zanzara just seems to be like, what do you need? I'll do it. Oh, you need me to sack all my camps to make sure you crash your wave? Yeah, I'll do it, buddy. Is that the kind of vibe he brings to the team?
That is exactly the kind of vibe. I mean, honestly, we're kind of lucky that this opportunity was presented to us, that we could have Zanzara come in, if that makes sense. Simply because, in the current meta, his champs are the best in the jungle. And it's just kind of hard to draft around because you can't just ban his champs, because then we get what? You get Gwen, you get Yuumi. So you're kind of forced to give him his champs as well, because otherwise the draft will be too bad for you, so you might as well still lose. So, and his playstyle, it's really team oriented. He's a heavy team player, which is something that apparently fits us very well.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. We were talking backstage. It's obviously very nice for you and Vetheo when you have a guy who's I'll rock up. I'll be there. I'll stand in this bush. I will stand there and I will look menacing. You know, those camps can wait. I don't need money. I don't need gold. I'm here for the homies.
I've been there. It was, I think, season 10 when it was a set volley bear meta just before it became a carry jungle meta, where it's you do 3 camps, you just dive bot. If you die, it doesn't matter. As long as the enemy AD carry dies, that's all that matters, because your AD carry just needs to get ahead. Those are the kind of metas I live for, because I just feel power farming is boring. Unless you're Canyon versus Peanut, and you're playing Nidalee in a game 5, and you're 6 levels up in 3 minutes because you're just fisting him so hard.
Unless we go to literally any other region but EU in that meta, where they were still playing Nidalee, and we're over here just playing set, praying to God that they won't just obliterate us when we go. But I miss set meta too. It was an aggro meta.
I saw an interview from Freddy. It's actually on the front page Reddit right now, going slightly off topic right now. He said, quote, "A lot of EU teams just pick scaling and hope. This doesn't improve the region whatsoever. For the region to actually improve, a lot of teams need to start picking a lot more early game comps. If you can't play early game, then you just can't play internationally." And I feel like that discussion we just had kind of sums it up, because you look at G2 and MSI, early game needs to improve. Then you come to the LEC, early game looks weak. Early game just seems like everything right now for teams.
Sure. I mean, Neon, how do you feel about that statement? That
I've seen the statement yesterday, and I've given it my thought. And my thought is this, right? So in LCK and LPL, you play best of 3s. You're more prone to experiment. You're more prone to try and play early game, because you might lose a game, you can still bring it back. But in EU, it's best of 1s. It's every game matters a lot when it comes to standings. So to me, it makes more sense that players want to pick more of their comfort, more to play more for scaling, want to be on the safer side of things. Yeah. Simply because that one win is just so much more important than losing one game in the best of 3 series and still being able to win the series despite, while being the better team, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, the thing is that it's easy to be oh, hey, if we want to be better for international competition, we need to do this. But it's normally we send 3 teams. Sometimes we send 1 team if it's MSI. We got 4 teams this time around. It's a lot of teams out here are just happy, they're barely making playoffs, and you're out here to be better for Worlds, we have to play early game. It's nah, bro, I'll take give me that. You get good enough that you can beat my late game, and I'll stop playing late game, homie. What do you want from me?
They just want their BO1 win doses just to get it there to play. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, you got to pick up BO1s in the regular season. I think you're completely right in saying why risk it? Why risk playing an early game comp? You think back to Damwon games where they play Renekton Nidalee, and then they lose a game because they're 5k up, but then they make one mistake in GG. But then in the draft a compo, you don't have to make mistakes. Astralis does it all the time. Just pick scaling, losing lanes, team fight, and hope the enemy team can end the game, and if they can't, then free win for us.
You know what?
Yeah, I mean, okay, guys, like, come on, like Rogue is welcome to play early game. They're welcome to do it, but they know themselves that if they do that and they make one mistake, boom, it's a loss, right?
Yeah.
So
they learned it versus you. We just talked about it. Renata Ultimate, very powerful. That was like the day where everyone was like, oh, maybe Renata is just like the best support.
Oh, dude, yeah, Rogue's on a slump. They're on a.
It's a roughie, dude.
I think they're in their last 5 games. They're 1-4.
Yeah, they had they won one game last weekend and then they lost the follow-up game, which was rough. Malrang was having a rough couple weeks, and now it feels like it's more than just Malrang. I don't know. It's difficult. Week 7 was a bit odd. How do you feel about Rogue? I feel like they're a team that a lot of people just get really comfortable looking at them in one way. They're the best of one team. They're the when they had Inspired, they were kind of the Inspired team. Now they're like the Malrang Psycho Gank every lane team. What do you think about Rogue?
I mean, still, despite their like latest results, I still think they're one of our best teams. Simply because like the amount of experience and like solidness they have on their roster, I just can't see like them not going to Worlds and not being like one of the better EU teams, right? Even though they're in a slump right now, I feel like if anyone is to make it back from a slump, it should be them. I mean, I've worked with Donamne before. I've been on Schalke with him. I've been in a slump with him, and I know that from my personal experience, this guy is quite good in this situation. So I have confidence in Rogue to make it back.
Yeah. I looked at their last 4 or 5 games. I think they're experimenting a lot with early game drafts. Like their last game against SK, they played Pantheon Thalia, which is like the LPL was dabbling in it a little bit. But the problem is they're playing like these double globals against LeBlanc and Shyvana, and it got to a point in the game where they actually had no options at all on any point on the map.
I mean, they just they got literally no early mid. That game was rough. They got no value out of the Pantheon Thalia roaming at 6. They got no value out of the Pantheon pre-6. That game was rough for a lot of reasons. Like that game went wrong well before LeBlanc and Shyvana started taking off.
A lot of their drafts questionable because then they played a Sivir Ashe lane, but they couldn't actually play around it because I don't know if you saw the game, but SK was doing really well at like swapping their bot lane to mismatch all the time out of lane. Then they played a game against you where they picked like Vi into your Poppy, which just looked really useless. They couldn't actually play. They banned like Skarn or Trundle.
Yeah, that was quite weird, I thought.
Then they gave you Poppy anyway, so the draft was also weird. Then they drafted like a Thalia lane with a Philios Lulu bot against like Sivir, Bard, Ahri, and they couldn't actually do anything, and they were just constantly being proactive. Enemy team was being proactive against them. So then they picked Sejuani into Trundle, into Tamkench Volibear. No, they played Volibear Sejuani into Tamkench. That was the G2 game.
It was Tamkench Hypercarry bot. It was a Tamkench affiliate.
Philios, yeah. So a lot of their drafts, there's just like one part of it that doesn't make sense. Either you're playing like this single target damage engage into a Tamkench, you're playing a global with like both losing sides and no engage. In the case against you guys, you're playing like a Vi jungle when they banned 2 and gave you Poppy anyway. Against SK, you're playing double global versus a 1-3-1 which can escape it. So I don't want to pinpoint draft as the only reason that they're losing, but like Larsen 0-3 on Thalia, and these drafts just have so many holes in them that the win conditions become so slim if you don't get ahead.
Yeah, I feel like there's drafting for early game and there's like not so good drafting, and it just feels like Rogue are not so good drafting because I think there's so many compositions where you're like, oh, if we just get ahead early game like we're supposed to, then like this weakness or this like clear flaw in our composition just doesn't matter. And I don't know, maybe that's the logic that they're bringing because some of this stuff is very suspect. I think it definitely started around the time that they just gave you guys Poppy. It was like, not only was it like Zanzar's first game on stage, just like gave you Poppy for free, and then they played the Vi into it, which we've seen. You know, other people like playing it, but like he was out cleared in like the first 3 minutes.
Not only did they give us Poppy, I think they also banned like the junglers that are good into
Poppy. They banned Trundle, and then they gave you Poppy.
Yeah, apparently Skarner is like also like into Poppy, even though I haven't seen it. I've heard that it's like a good matchup for Skarner.
Yeah. You can basically input buffer the
R. That was a little bit weird. And also like at the importance of draft, like right now EU kind of feels like you draft better, you win in a best of one. Like that's just kind of how it feels, because after the durability changes, after like TP changes, like the game is like kind of so predictable right now that like just having the better drafts sets you up so much for success. Like the early game options have been like greatly eliminated because let's say you play something where you want to look for dives, you need to be really clean to win the game. Otherwise, you're just not, because if you want to dive, you need to pick something like Renekton, like an aggressive jungler, you know? Yeah. But then you're like, you die once, you lose one team fight, the game is over. Because there's bounties, there's just so many comeback mechanisms that like you're putting yourself at such a high risk in a best of one scenario where that if you make a mistake, you just lose. So that's why I think also like so many teams in EU just offer those like heavily team fighting comps, scaling comps. And that's what we've been doing in Misfits since day one. And I mean,
that's
it's worked out for us.
And that's the thing that I think is cool about tracking specifically Misfits progress is that you guys started off kind of like you lost a lot of early games, but you were clearly drafting for late game team fighting. But now you're getting compositions where you can still team fight, but you're also winning your early games. And like that's the development curve that I've been like really enjoying watch, is that it's like you're keeping what made you strong before, which was you were good at team fighting compositions. Like you were genuinely good at it. Obviously you also drafted for it, which is the other half of the puzzle. But now you're less like it's not Ornn every game, so you're less heavily drafting for team fighting, let's say. And it's not like Ornn Aphelios, right? Obviously, Zeri's cracked still, but not quite as much of like the hyper scaling. And you're still getting the late game impact, but you're also early game getting cleaner. So I think that's been cool to watch.
How do you approach best of fives then? Because if best of one is all good and dandy to pick like scaling and picking team fight and stuff, when you approach playoffs best of fives, the scrims change where it's like, okay, we need to add one or two more styles to our team so we can actually play an early game comp in case we need to in game one. Yeah,
so like the whole structure of your practice should change heading up to a best of fives, because if you're playing best of ones, right, like the only objective that you have throughout the whole week is to just practice one way of drafting, you know, because that's just it. But in a best of five, you need to be able to adapt, because you will lose with one of your strategies. What do you got next? You know, if you don't have anything ready, then you're just not gonna make it. And that's when it becomes really spicy. And like you might be a good team in a best of one, but in a best of five, as unfortunately we've seen it with ourselves in Spring Split, you might just crumble because you don't have this kind of adaptability. And that's what kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say worries, but like is like an area of uncertainty for me now.
Uncertainty.
Yeah. Thanks. Is that sure, we're looking quite good right now, but if you go to the best of five stage, like, are we gonna be this time able to like be able to adapt? You know,
I mean, it's natural when you did it before and it was an issue before, until you actually see it and prove it to yourself that it's like good. I think it's natural to be like uncertain in that context. Taking back and kind of focusing in again on week 7, because while you guys are feeling pretty cozy at this moment for playoffs, and a lot of teams are around you as well, we have basically this fist fight between 3 teams fighting for a single spot. It's Astralis, Fnatic, and XL. And I want to take a little bit of time to talk about Astralis, because I feel like we're never impressed by Astralis. I feel like we have labeled them as like they sit back, they lose early game, they scale, they like team fight and win. And I'm curious if that's fair from your perspective, Neon, that like overall assessment, or are we not giving them enough credit? Like, how are Astralis tied for 6th right now
with Fnatic XL?
With Fnatic and XL, despite the fact that like everyone who talks about them has like no nice things to say about this team. Like, what are they doing well? What are they doing right?
Well, what they're doing well is, okay, so they put their top lane on a tank. That's step number 1.
Got it.
Put Vizichat on a tank.
First pick Ornn.
Then 1. Jungle picks Wukong or Viego.
Got it.
Yep, that's the 2nd. And then you let your support, who's I think quite good, counterpick and have something spice ready, and hopefully he can, you know, do some nice stuff.
Make some magic.
Yeah, make some magic.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Because you would think that maybe it was like an early split narrative or identity that they had. You know, they fall behind, they make these incredible comebacks. That's how they're picking up these wins, you know, against XL or whatever. They were down 10k in a huge throw and they come back. But their game against Vitality on the Saturday, they were down, I'm looking here, 7.5k gold. And they lost the Baron fight, they got aced, and they lost Nash. The game was over. And then Perks Akali, questionable in team fights a little bit after that point. I think they just like grouped up and ran into them like 4 times, and Astralis just won like 2 or 3 fights in a row and the game was over. And they won. So it's still there. You know, you look at their latest game, they're still losing early games and they're still coming back in late games. And I think Neon's right. It's step 1. You even already see them on blue side, first picking Ornn. I've not seen a single team in the world first pick Ornn other than Astralis. So,
since G2 playoff run, where they just first picked basically
Orange Jarvan Rakan every game.
Orange Jarvan Ari.
Every game.
12-0, baby. Yeah. No one learned. Dab.
Miracle run it. So, I think that's a fair assessment as well. But it is impressive to think that, like, you know, when you look at, like, the ideas and the identities of other teams around them, XL especially, have been like this. Oh, Korean bootcamp, they're so good. First place in the first 3 weeks. They're gonna make playoffs, and now they're tied with Astralis in sixth, right?
Yeah.
And Fnatic have had their slump. There was a Fnatic is back, but they only beat SK and BDS, I think, and then they lost again. So Fnatic,
bro,
wasn't
just
back
on the
for long.
Astralis thing, I think shout out to Jonghyun because I think this is so funny. I feel like teams are giving this man so much respect that they're like psyching themselves out in pick ban. Like he literally got Pyke Bard double banned in second phase versus Vitality. They have like the most hyper mobile, like don't give a about Bard composition I've ever seen in my life, and they're out here like, nah, man, this guy's Bard is on another level. Like we're like gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of did the same when we played against him. We banned we banned Bard and we banned, I think, Time Kench,
Yeah.
And I mean, this guy still wanted his like spicy pick, so he ended up looking in Pyke against Leona, which is not the greatest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But would you, if you, let's say your Vitality, I won't tell you their whole draft because it'll be too many nuances. But if you see a Twitch picked on blue side and you're going into 4-5 with bans, is Pyke a really good ban when you're playing a Zeri lane? You know, Twitch Pyke, is that something to be scared of? Because they gave them Renata anyway.
I mean, when you're playing Twitch into Zeri,
Yeah.
it's like you have a lot of opportunity to all in, and Zeri is very weak in lane. So I think picking Pyke in that sense kind of makes sense because you already have so much freedom. So if you pick Pyke, you're guaranteed to be winning bot, and you're guaranteed to have the opportunity to influence other lanes and play for her already. So I can understand the Pyke ban there, you know. They had Renata as well?
No, so they banned Pyke Bard,
They
and
picked
Twitch got
Rakan,
Renata.
and then enemy just got Renata.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not very good either. So.
So they made a
That's the
mistake
problem.
there, yeah.
Is I think that in that context, and I'm sure that the whoever was making this decision in draft will have their own context. I think it's just rough when you get so tunneled on the pocket picks that you forget the like.
Yeah,
me,
what is actually good and
what
what
like
isn't.
the universal S tier, right? It's like yeah, his Pyke and his Bard are scary, but like Renata's still just turbo
It's
broken.
so
No,
broken.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bart Twitch is that good of a combination. I'll be honest with you. I don't think they want to do the same thing as a bot lane duo.
no.
The sarcasm in your voice.
Bro, and I'm a big like the thing is I love the edgy boy bot lane picks. I spent a decent amount of time one tricking both Pyke and Bard, so I'm down for people to see it. But the funniest thing about it is like people are just so like I think when people don't 100% know like what a champ does or they think someone's really good on it, they just like assume it's always good, which is just like absolutely not the case.
Honestly, you know how there's like this narrative like, okay, let's remove Yuumi.
Yeah.
Like for me, it is remove Yuumi and remove Pyke. And not because Pyke is a bad champ, but simply because it's like this champion gives a lot of fake data. It's like so like, okay, the player has to be good, the situation has to be good, and he has to be lucky to make it work, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I agree. I mean, like literally, we've seen every successful Pyke game we've seen in Europe and from Europe, you know, Pyke players internationally, like truly good Pyke game. It's the same level 1 cheese every time. It's Hail of Blades in the bush, hook level 1, 3 autos, win the lane. Trade flashes, win the lane. Hillisang did it. Targamas did it. And it's like, I mean, and Jonghyun's had some more creative landing phases and things with the Glacial Augment too, but like most good Pyke games start with like someone falling for that exact same cheese. That's like the vast majority of the games.
And I love it.
And we're like, whoa, Pyke! I love it every time. It's dope. It's
Are you the kind of AD carry where you're mentally like out of it when Blitzcrank's picked on the enemy team?
No, not at all, actually. That champ is quite useless.
I've spoken to so many AD carries that when Blitzcrank gets locked in, their mental is like,
I mean,
they can't
honestly,
focus.
it depends on what kind of comp you're running. If you have a front line or your jungler on support and enemy has Blitzcrank, it's the most useless champ ever. But if you have like range support and a carry jungler, okay, Blitzcrank is really fucking good. So it's a super situational pick.
One hook, one shot.
I mean, I just feel like, no, I'm not about the Blitzcrank life, bro. Give me a Naut any day. I'd just rather have a Nautilus. I know it's not the same, but functionally to me, it feels a lot.
Depends on who the Blitzcrank is. You know, if it's carry next to you, you know those hooks can't be hidden.
Yeah. Speaking of bot lane, we can use this as a transition to Excel because Nilah got locked in. I don't know how much experience you have with Nilah. I don't know what you guys have been scrimming. I don't want you to give anything away, but looked not good. Looked kind of mediocre, mid-af, as the kids would say.
All right. So I have my opinion on Nilah. I don't know how accurate it is. That's just my
but that's what we're here
educated
for.
guess. Yeah. So I think Nilah is quite similar to Samira with her kit. Like we all know this, right?
Yep.
But in her kit, she has amplified healing and shielding from her allies, right?
Yep.
And she has low range. So she's in a weird spot where she wants to be able to all in because that's her kit, but she also wants to be able to receive healing and shielding, right?
Yep.
And a lot of range supports, they don't offer you all in. They just offer like standing back and healing and shielding you. And that's not good because you want the all in, right?
Yep.
And there's one particular champion that stands out from like the others, and it's Taric.
Yep.
So I think Excel got the good combination. But even with Taric, I'm not sure whether it's actually good bot lane duo combination because A, you're low range, B, you need to all in to fight. And if you're playing a champion that always needs to all in to fight, you need to be able to know its limits super well. And if you have a week worth of practice, I don't think you're going to be able to get a good guess on how strong your champion actually is. So I think Excel low-key flipped it with Nilah. They were like, okay, maybe it looked good in scrims because scrims often are way bloodier than official games. And it looked good, right? But in an official game, the enemy will not try to fight you because they don't know how strong you are, or like they will not fight you because they're scared or something.
More respect.
And you will not get as fed. And then you're like, hold up, can I actually fight now? How strong am I now? I don't have kills. And I don't know, like personally, I wouldn't be comfortable heading into last week and having 1 week worth of practice with Nilah and being like super confident locking it in. So I guess props to Patrick for like being like, okay, like just slam it, you know, like hope for the best.
I was hyped. There was like a lot of little things I was trying to keep my eye on, but I think the big thing that like the biggest separator that I see in these champions is also the way that their W's work. So Samira has a wind wall, which is better in some situations, worse, and she has this dodge with a little bit of reduced magic damage. Basically, it's just Jaxi that she can pass to her allies without the stun at the end. And it's like, if there's like a TF on the enemy team, if you're really going to get value out of that in a way that's meaningful, but like most of the times Nilah died, it's like, well, you're not blocking or reducing any damage from Jarvan EQR. Ever. That's not happening. All Silas's abilities, there's like a little bit of reduced magic damage. Sivir Q, it's not getting reduced. Yeah, you're blocking autos, but like how much does that matter when the enemy team can kill you with like a full rotation of spells without ever having to auto attack you? So that was like one of the things that I noticed is like in theory, that ability is like so massively impactful, but I think only when it's like really meaningful against enemy champions. My dream is like enemy has, this is my brainstorming. If there's like an Aphelios and a TF on the enemy team and you lock this champion in, I think this champion might be busted.
And a Leona or a Nautilus.
Yeah.
You can block Leona
just
Q.
get it,
can
block the
Nautilus
thing.
through
Yeah,
its
just
roots.
like you have to be able to block, because otherwise I'm just like, Samira just feels better to me. You know what I mean?
And especially like G2's draft into it felt quite difficult for Patrick to actually kill them because they're playing like Sejuani, Jarvan, Sylas with a Lulu behind them. So they want to go into you as well, but you want to go into them. And
you go into them, you still get knocked up by the Lulu, you still get W'd by the Lulu, LeBlanc, or the Nilah. And then like Nilah doesn't like do that much upfront. It's not like Samira where you just hit your S rank and you immediately start spinning on kids. Like you need time to do damage.
I mean, that's what I mean, right? Like if you had actually had a good idea on like the strengths and weaknesses of Nilah, you probably wouldn't want to play against champions like Lulu, right? But I feel like what Patrick was doing, he was like wandering into the unknown territory with that pick. And
I mean, they banned Rakan Janna, so it seems like they were aware that that was like potentially an issue, and maybe they just didn't have enough bans to shut down every option.
yeah, hold up. Did they pick Nilah on first three?
They picked Nilah on first three. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Then Nilah Taric 2-3 on blue
I
side.
feel like Nilah is a champ where you like kind of want to see exactly the type of comp that you're going to be playing against before you lock it in.
I agree. Feels similar. I think
That
very
makes
similar to Samira in that regard,
Yeah,
where it's like very strong, but in a very, very limited circumstance.
I also think if you swap top sides, it makes more sense. Like if you have a Nilah Taric with Sylas, Jarvan, Sejuani, it makes it more one-dimensional in the way you're playing fights. But with LeBlanc, Viego, it just feels a bit underwhelming when you go in. Maybe Viego wants a reset, but anyway.
It's really rough. I really just think the biggest issue is that Samira Windwall is just like so much more valuable generally. Whereas like Nilah dodge is obviously really often be more significant in the 1v1.
I mean, also, I feel like Nilah is a way weaker Samira right now. Like I feel like Samira is in a really good spot, and it's like I think Unforgiven has played it and it looked really well. And Bo in solo queue, Smurfed on me with Samira, and I'm like, hold up, this champ is kind of OP.
Yeah, Samira and Nautilus just all inning on every other way.
Release. The only thing I feel like this release of Nilah does and seeing her on stage is just is exactly that. Just remind people how good Samira is. They're like, oh wow, oh yeah. Actually, maybe we should try Samira in scrims.
I really wonder how it's going to be like balanceable, Nilah. I feel like she's either going to all in and does too much damage, or she can never really all in. But like you were saying, I think your assessment on like support champs makes a lot of sense. Like the only one that wants to go in with shields is Taric?
She's just niche. I just think her kit's just a little bit weird because it's like they want her to be a bot laner, just like Samira. So they gave her. Samira has the knock-up auto thing or whatever, the extending knock-ups with her autos. Nilah has all this extra healing, shielding, this experience share. The fact that she can pass the dodge to her allies is like really potentially very strong, but it's like so hard to get value out of. So it wouldn't surprise me if they like take out some of the, let's say, more bot lane focused parts of her kit and put that power elsewhere. Because
maybe a solo laner.
Not as a solo laner, but like I would rather the W last longer than be able to pass it to allies more often than not, because I don't need to keep my damn Taric alive. If my Taric dies, who cares? I need to live longer. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the problem that I see. Like Windwall can protect your entire team. It can stop an Ornn ultimate. It just feels so much like such a way more impactful ability.
Yeah, it feels a lot better.
I don't know. We'll see what happens with it, but that's interesting. I mean, any other thoughts on Excel past that game? What do you are they the clear front runner to make it in? All of these teams are kind of a little bit messy right now.
It's Excel against Fnatic, right? Most likely for making it for the last spot.
For context, Excel will play Rogue, SK, and Astralis. Fnatic will play Astralis, Vitality, and Misfits. You guys.
Ooh, okay, that's kind of spicy.
Excel, quote unquote, theoretically easier schedule because they have Astralis, SK. But yeah, it's between those two, I think, right now.
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, my vote probably goes out to Excel, simply because I think in their current state, I think Fnatic has like a lot more like clear and obvious flaws or like ways to beat them.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though Excel's Korea buff has expired, I still think they can pull it through.
Yeah. Do you want to? You have to play Fnatic this coming week, but do you want to talk a little bit about Fnatic's flaws? Because we can at least start by talking about the G2 game, which was.
This is going to be published before our game, I assume.
Yeah, it is. So you can keep some of the thoughts to yourself. We can just talk about the game.
Yeah, it's probably in my best intention to just keep my mouth shut.
We'll say what we think, and then you can comment on our stuff as much as, because again, I don't want you to give away any of the secret sauce here. But G2 game, bit of a hot mess. I was impressed on the G2 side. Credit to Flackid, just raw picking the Draven.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Really surprised when Fnatic were just like, okay, we'll take Ezreal.
Yeah.
I was like, that really threw me.
Actually, before we continue, I just want to ask Neon here. So let's say you're Fnatic, okay, and G2 is red side, and they just 1-2 slammed Draven. Okay, I'm just going to check here what the bans were. I think Kalista was banned.
Kalista was banned.
So Kalista is the only champ that's banned in bot lane.
Yeah.
They just 1-2 blind Draven. What do you think are, not to give anything away or anything, but best options for what would you say is 2-3 for blue side AD carry or bot lane? Because what Fnatic did is they just took the Ezreal and they said,
okay, I think personally, I think taking the Ezreal on 2-3 is really bad, because on 2-3 you want to get like power picks, right?
Yeah.
And if you pick Ezreal, who's like losing into the Draven, you're not really getting yourself a power pick. You're just picking yourself a losing bot lane, and then the power picks that are like left open that you should have been grabbing for like, let's say, your top mid jungle are going to get banned out on 4 or 5, right?
Yeah.
So
in this case, Wonders, Gragas, and Shyvana.
Yeah. So what I would do, in my opinion, I think Draven is really strong right now. I think he has no like clear counter, and most likely if you pick Draven in like the first phase, you're most likely not going to get counterpicked. You're most likely going to have a winning lane. So if I pick Draven, I want to drop my bot lane, get the power picks on my top mid jungle, and then just get something that's fine into Draven. And there's like a lot of lanes that are fine. None of them will be winning, but they're fine. But if you look in Ezreal on that 2-3, I think it's really bad from a drafting perspective, because then you're going to end up with what? Jarvan top lane? I think that's what they ended up with, right? And you had Ezreal Rakan.
Yep.
Which is like, you're so primed to let Draven free farm, get like 100, 200-ish stacks, then get dove, get executed with his R, and the game is over. And that's what kind of happened, right?
Yeah.
It's like, to me, from a drafting perspective, it just doesn't feel right. And I would never do this personally.
Just
like
focus top side.
If I want to pick my Ezreal, like they should never ban Ezreal, because Ezreal doesn't really counter Draven. I mean, it's like fine pick into it, but it doesn't counter it, right? There's like a lot of fine picks. So if I'm bot lane there, I always want to go 4 or 5 and pick later. Let my team pick their good champs that are probably left open, right? Because if you pick Draven, you won't be able to answer either jungle, mid, or top.
Yeah.
And then at least that lane can get a really good matchup when you already have a losing bot lane because of the Draven pick.
I mean, speaking of Samira, potentially a good time. Obviously, can just eat the axes when he throws out the axes. Not a terrible matchup. Obviously, you do get a little bit blasted in some of the other trades.
Okay, I don't think a lot of people will opt out for the Samira Draven matchup, because it's like so explosive. One kill will decide the game, right? And I don't think a lot of teams want that. And
one of these teams has an exhaust ignite Rakan.
Maybe in a BO3.
Consider it maybe in a BO3.
Yeah, in the best of 3, maybe.
Just bust out Samira lane.
No, this game was miserable for Fnatic. Obviously, credit to G2 for making a lot of these early kills happen, but then Fnatic did the thing where they sacked top and Wonder came bot for a gank.
Yeah.
Hylissang then went in early and died, giving Draven all of his stacks, and then they killed the Draven. So it was
really?
like literally the most miserable early game. They throw everything they have to bail it out. Hilly goes in, gives the man his 200 extra gold cash out, and then they finally kill the Draven.
The worst part for me in this game was the early gank from Jankos top side onto Humanoid, where he literally pinks the bush with Humanoid's ward in it. So he sees that Jankos is basically there. And then he gets ganked from there 2 seconds later and dies to the gank, and they get a kill on
was he out of mana there? What happened there?
Okay, so sometimes this is like a really troll thing, but sometimes, okay, listen. Sometimes you see that someone pinks your ward, right?
Yeah.
And you're like assuming that since they know that you had the ward, they're gonna back off instantly, you know? And sometimes it's like your ego being like, okay, this guy won't gank me now. He knows I'm not stupid. He knows I'm not gankable here. So like walk up and you get ganked, and then you're like, wait, I'm actually
it's a bluffing game.
Yeah,
it's almost like a game of poker where it's like, I know that you know it's warded.
So are you gonna go for it?
Therefore, are you gonna gank me because I know you're there?
Yeah, and then you have to be like, okay, so if this guy doesn't know where my jungler is, and I'm playing like this, is he gonna go for the gank? You know? So who knows what really went on in Humanoid's head?
And I think technically he was playing, but to the bottom side of the lane enough that if he messed up the QE or he didn't have enough mana.
I think he didn't have any soldiers left, so he had to like flash over caps to then dash to a soldier after he already used it.
But I think he kind of did it in a weird way.
But
as
he did it
well.
in a very weird way.
He either botched it or didn't have enough mana to do it properly, or didn't have enough soldiers. We can watch back the play, but he messed it up, and it was like because you could tell that he messed it up because it was like random, really sloppy flash right after he biffed it because he just had to get out of the Pantheon W range.
But yeah, from that point onwards, G2's comp is just so like snowbally. Like Sylas, Pantheon, Draven, Sejuani, like the second you walk up and even try to contest objective.
And the Pantheon was also gets a successful gank off, remains ahead in XP. Razork is trying to catch up but keeps getting called bot. Like that game broke apart so quickly. And kind of as you expect in a Draven Pantheon game, when you start to lose the early game, things are going to get worse fast. And Fnatic, credit to them, I like when teams try to fight their way out of a deficit, but obviously it just makes everything look that much worse when it does backfire.
Just zooming backwards here. So as he gets ganked, he uses W forwards and he gets ganked. So what he does is he Qs backwards and he wants to E to it, but he can't E to it because Cap's in the way. So he flashes over Caps and then E's to it because he has no soldiers left. So ideally, if he had a soldier, he would just flash WEQ and he'd be out. But his instant reaction when he saw Jankos was just to throw his soldier behind him, but then he couldn't dash to it. So yeah.
Sounds like it was calculated. He just might not be very good at math. That might be the math gap.
If only he had a soldier. So yeah, that's how the game played out. But Fnatic are looking... It's a very, very precarious situation. Do we have the standing?
Yeah, they're behind us. It's a plot armor angle for Fnatic right now.
They need some plot armor buff.
It's you are the old kings of Europe narrative. Find a way to rally, never miss playoffs, blah, blah, blah. Because like if I look at their gameplay, it's doomed. But a lot changes in a 1 week of scrims. That's the other thing that we have to say is that like a lot can change. But if you are without any bias, just looking at their gameplay, without their history behind them, there's no way I think you can in good faith predict Fnatic right now.
Who's your prediction on XL or Fnatic?
It's XL.
It's on XL.
Yeah.
I
think it has to be.
Yeah. The only worry I have for XL, the last point I was going to make about them, is if you look at their match history, they're on a 4-game losing streak, right? They just came off a loss against BDS, which in their minds should have been a win. They've lost games to Astralis this split. They've lost games to SK this split. They're dropping games because I think XL is really inconsistent right now. The first week, they went 4-1. They went like 5-2. But ever since then, it's all downhill. So as much as I feel like XL has the easier schedule, their whole split has been just full of inconsistencies and losing to bottom tier teams. So
I low-key think Astralis can get it. And I don't think it's that board for a prediction. And it's not because they're like better of the 3 teams, but in the they just like do not ego draft. They are not afraid to just take a back step. And if like Excel and Fnatic are both coming in like, we've broken the formula. Humanoid is your first pick. Blah, 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 every game. And Excel are like, oh no, this is the week we make Nilah work. Astralis might just win on the merit of they're not here to prove anything. They're here to get wins any way possible. And like the more we talk about both Fnatic and Excel, the more I'm like, Astralis might be the safest bet. They literally play both of those teams. Just saying. I don't like it.
Speak of ego drafting, didn't Astralis play Vitality after they played us, and then like the Vitality team just like gives them exactly what they want, which is like Ornn.
Yes.
And they just lose.
Yeah, that was the game of the Vitality.
And to be fair, they
really
were
far
winning
ahead.
right up until
They were, but like it's still like you look at a team and you think of like, okay, what's their biggest strength? And like to me, it's quite clear, right?
Yep.
And even if their biggest strength to me is like, okay, I can shitstorm your biggest strength. Like I'll still like swallow it up and I'll like ban it, right?
Yeah, you just gotta ban it.
Yeah. I think it's just kind of that simple.
Yeah, I think their draft was Ornn, Sylas, Twitch, Renata, Trundle. That was Astralis' draft. So it was.
I mean, I think looking at them historically, like that's exactly the type of comp that they want to play, right? Like that's literally their style. So if I play against a team which plays one style, like I kind of want to.
Yeah, against you guys, they played the opposite. They played Gnar, Draven, Pyke, right? It's like night and day.
That was rough.
Because when you say it, it's just the Ornn ban, basically, right? It's like the one thing that you're saying that they should have taken away.
Maybe.
I mean, there's no one that does it like Ornn, right? Ornn is just a nasty champion because so much. Draven items. Kabi built Kraken Slayer that game, and I was like, this looks grief to me. Now, we also saw Gale Force from Flakked. Mostly we see Eclipse, but what is your thought on Draven itemization real quick? Because we were debating this on desk.
So I'm not a Draven one trick myself. I'm not a very pronounced Draven player either. However, though, I do talk to some Draven players, and what they told me is basically when I play Eclipse every game, because it just is the biggest power spike. The Eclipse item on its own is really good, and it gives you like scaling and the early power that the Draven wants.
Yep.
So, I mean, to me, Kraken Slayer, when I look back at it, is not it. And I don't think Gale Force is necessarily it either. But let's just say if you're really far ahead, like sometimes the items that you build don't matter that much.
Yeah.
And I mean, Gale Force is maybe a little bit of an underrated item, especially in a competitive game.
Yeah.
Because, like, let's say you build Gale Force in a solo queue game, right? Like, there's a fight every 30 seconds, so you don't always have it. But on a competitive game, a lot of the times, the team fights are spaced apart. So that Gale Force item can actually be the game saver sometimes.
Yeah, I guess also, is Gale Force a good tech? So, for example, he was playing against Wukong, Jarvan, Rakan.
This is
Gale Force could be used for it could be used for self peel as well, perhaps.
I mean, okay, so Gale Force into Jarvan is like kind of tricky. Like if you're really good, you can Gale Force as Jarvan is ulting and get out of the Jarvan ulti, right? But into like a Wukong Rakan, I don't think it's gonna help you much, right?
Okay. That was my curiosity question. And then he built towards like IE, BT, full crit Draven. Went 10-1, was popping off.
Yeah.
Decisive game from G2 though.
Yeah, and as a whole, maybe we can then talk about a little bit about EUphoria MVP. Whereas 2-0 teams this week, G2 Misfits. We have, in my eyes, 4 candidates. Let's talk about the G2 ones first, and we can end on the Misfits one. Flakked, Caps as an 80 carry. Flakked played Sivir this week. Big game. Similarly, the Draven game, obviously, like smashed Fnatic bot lane multiple times. What are your thoughts on Flacked's performance? What are your thoughts on Flakked?
I mean, I think it's quite good. I mean, I think we both smurfed this week, so it's going to be a hard one.
It's true.
There's like a notion around G2 sometimes where it's like bot lane is quote unquote their weakest role. You know, a lot of teams argue that they're strong. A lot of teams argue that they're weak.
If you have a team where your top side is Jankos, Broken Blade, and Caps, your bot side better be the weakness of your team. You know what I mean?
I think that's a very good angle to look at it from, because I think the word might not necessarily be that they're a weak lane or they're a weak bot lane, but like the players around them are just so good that it's hard not to look like the weakest of the team, because they're still phenomenal players, Flakked and Targamas. You know, Targamas has shown he's like one of the best supports in Europe. Flakked has shown how goddamn flexible this guy can be. You put him on any role you want, like whether it's a center lane, Sion, Yasuo, like he can play anything he needs for his top side.
Yeah, I'm like not as that sold. You know, like I like Flakked. I think he played well. I still think G2 look best when they play compositions that set him up to just play backline carries. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you can say the Senna games are good, but a lot of those games weren't defined by the Senna. He's just like a product of other people's leads. So I think Flacked's good. I think you're right that his top side is so goated that people are probably under giving him credit. But I'm not ready to call him like one of the great EU AD carries. Not yet. He's definitely still growing into that role. I don't want to oversell Flakked or Targamas, but I also don't want to like. I guess I just don't want to oversell him. I don't want to take away their praise. They deserve praise. They had a great week. But I feel like people are like, sometimes when we hear so much criticism for a player, like my tendency is to overcompensate. So I'm trying not to do that because I think people don't give enough credit to Flakked, yes, but he's also not like, he's not there yet. I think we're still waiting to see more from that bot lane because Targamas was great. that Pyke game at MSI wasn't that good. You know, like there's a lot of the moments that people are like, oh, G2 won the game. Targamas is the best in the world. And it's like, well, I mean, Targamas has a lot of great games, but every time G2 wins a game, it's not a great Targamas game. It's not a great Flacket game. That's not what it means by default.
Who would you say, very out of left field question, is like, in your eyes, the strongest bot right now in the league? Because before we get on to EUphoria MVP, sorry.
Sure.
Like prior to Spling, prior to summer, everyone's saying Upset Hilly. And then after that, in the first couple of weeks, everyone was saying Patrick Mickey ever since they came back from Korea. Then Unforgiven Kaiser are now looking incredible in summer. Comp and Trimby are now slumping a little bit. They've had their ups and downs. Their bot lane meta seems a bit off compared to each other. One another seem to have different ideas. Where do you lie? Not so much a ranking, but like in maybe tier list of bot lanes.
I don't necessarily want to do a tier list. I think it's quite difficult, and I would have to think about it a lot.
Sure.
What I'll say though is like based on my like when I play the people in scrims, and this is also taking into consideration their champion pools and how well they play on like different kinds of champions. I would say the best bot lane pairings that we have right now would be Patrick Mickey and Trimby Comp. I can't really say for sure who I think is better. I think they both can play a big pool of champions.
Wide variety,
Yeah, wide variety. And I think both these bot lanes are like quite flexible, and like mechanically, like both these bot lanes are very good on both players. So I think these two are the best, and then the rest is just. I think I would put the Mad Lions bot lane, the Fnatic bot lane. Oh wait, where's my teams?
Where's your team?
Give us standings back. Give us standings back, Phil.
Give us standings
we
back.
got G2 bot lane as well.
Okay, so I would put G2 bot lane, Vitality bot lane, us, Fnatic, into like the same pact.
Okay.
And then probably the other bot lines.
Interesting.
But I mean, obviously take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on like a lot of the tier lists and like a very.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like how I feel about the bot lanes from just playing against them and how they perform, how consistent they are.
I think we'll obviously see more in best of 5. But I mean, I think that's a sentiment that we've heard a lot. A lot of people were talking through the early season. We haven't checked in as much with pros over the course of this mid to late season that like Patrick and Mickey were really the force to be reckoned with. And I think a lot of people have, for a long time, I think it was the upset Hillisang, like, ooh, they're the best bot lane. But it feels like in this season, they've maybe fallen a little bit in people's eyes, or Excel have risen up, depending on how you want to frame it. And it's cool to hear Comp and Trimby in that discussion, because I think that like you see them perform well on stage, but they're not big flashy names, which I think what makes it so cool is like Patrick
the
Mickey.
The thing is there's not really a bot lane this season that's like consistently flashy on stage. Like there's bot lanes that like some games they have a great game and then the other game they're just inting, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's hard to pick this split, honestly. I think it's very hard.
It also feels like a kind of bot centric meta now, with like the way mid jungle is drafted just for like roaming. Top lane feels like you had this trifecta of like Gangplank, Gwen, and Gnar, but with like certain nerfs to GP, he's kind of gone. Gwen seems to be pretty strong.
Yeah, I think top lane meta right now is extremely straightforward to me. Like if I'm drafting top lane, okay, is Gwen banned? If not, pick it. If it is, just pick Ornn.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Then it's all bot lane.
And then it's pretty bot centric. Yes,
it's crazy because we went to a bot centric meta with like Kalista Draven. And then we went back to top a little bit with these 3 top laners, and now we're going back to bot lane a bit.
And maybe in this last week, people will just ban Kalista Draven or pick scaling against it and just wait, because Sivir's also very good now too, right? And that's the thing that's like, I don't know. I don't mind the bot side, but also in general, I think to your point about bot lanes having hit games, like the entire season, and part of the reason our standings look like they do right now is because we've gotten used now to having this like top 5 now that we've solidified it. But remember, for like 4 weeks of this split, it was, what was it Yanko said? Literally everyone is losing.
Everyone is losing.
Like the middle of our season was a hot mess.
It's normally at this point in the split, now I might be wrong, but like by going into week 8, at least 2 or 3 teams are like safe locked. Maybe there's 2 or 3 teams fighting.
No, you're
like
right. I mean, usually it's like sometimes even 4 teams going into this point of the season. Usually we are not nearly this close.
Oh my God, it's going to be so...
And to be fair, like every team in the top 5 right now, outside of Mad, who have already locked their spot, like are locking in more than 90% of the remaining scenarios. So that's very likely our top 5, but it's just technically not there yet, which is always a big red flag as we go forward.
Surely
that said, bringing us back.
Yeah, back to EUphoria MVP.
We talked about Flacket for G2. to the surprise of no one, the potential candidate for Misfits, I think you go Vetheo or Neon. But I would you pick? I know it's hard because you're like, you don't want to. If I let you choose who is the Misfits MVP for the week, maybe you're not the kind of guy that feel comfortable putting yourself up there. You'd want to put your boys up.
Honestly, like I'm just gonna do myself a favor and put myself up there for 1 week. I think I did have quite a good week. I played Zeri against Draven, Pyke. I didn't play perfect, but I am quite like happy with my performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that game against what was it, Astralis. I thought we had some really good swaps with our bot lane.
Mm-hmm.
And the game where I played Twitch, I also felt like I was having a lot of impact on like the outcome of the game. So I mean, if there's a week where I should plug myself in, I think it's this one.
I'm inclined. The biggest thing for me is I think the two games that I would look at is it's not your Astralis game and it's not Flackid's Sivir game. It would be his Draven game versus your Twitch game. And I think the big thing in your Twitch game was that, you were everywhere. You were roaming into mid. You were making plays. And like, don't get me wrong, Twitch game is very strong, but you were everywhere. You're collapsing on side lanes. You were still doing your job in fights. It was kind of the you and Vetheo versus the world show with admittedly a cat strapped to one of you. But, Mersa, where you don't get the glory when you're the Yuumi player. Sorry, bro. It's never going to come your way for that champion.
Exactly. I also think you've had incredible performances, not only this week, but last week as well. Against Rogue and SK, I think you played phenomenally. So I'm inclined to go with...
Yeah, but last week is this week's MVP.
I know. But my point is the momentum,
Yeah,
like
the momentum,
it's a
it
consistent trend that is continuing.
I like the Twitch because I think that oftentimes with 80 carry, you're like a role player. You're just like, you show up, you do what you have to do in a team fight. And the Sivir games often look like that. And I think it was a similar story for you and Flack in that capacity, where Flack has like 1 million people on his front line. He's playing the fights well. He's getting the kills. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, that game, like, whatever. You're playing a death ball.
Yeah.
It's this Twitch game that I think really sold it to me, because not only did you do it versus Mad and their bot lane, who have been looking good, Unforgiven and Kaiser. Why they gave you Twitch Yuumi is beyond me, but they did. They wanted to take the challenge.
I mean, honestly, I have played against them in the past. I remember screaming against them at Twitch Yuumi, and just like a little fun story. So Twitch Yuumi is a bot lane duo that I figured out that if the enemy doesn't know this, you will kill them level 1. I have played against every LEC bot lane pretty much by now, and I have killed them level 1 with Twitch Yuumi. And Mad Lions, if you guys look at the replay, level 1, they're hugging their tower. They're losing XP because they know that I could kill them, right?
Yeah. Is that where you started Q and Q?
Well, you got the flash, right? Level 1, 2.
Yeah, I got this flash level 1, 2. You start Q on Twitch level 1, you start E on Yuumi, and you just all in them because you have 3 combat summoners. And honestly, the first game of the split, I played against the Twitch Yuumi. I was playing Zeri Nautilus, I was playing against Exile botlane, and I was looking at the game afterwards, and I was like, wait, if they won, they can just kill me. And ever since, I've been doing it like every botlane. It was like kind of funny to see how they remember this moment from the screens, and they just like
they were scarred. They were scarred. It was engraved in their brain where they're just gonna kill us.
And honestly, if I was really good this game, then I would have known that from scrims, these guys are not gonna walk up level 1, and I would have known that they're gonna respect like this, and I would have just run mid lane instead level 1. Know that the enemy bot lane will be hacking their tower, and I would have just killed Niski.
One step ahead. That's the case of like that they know that you know.
Yeah, and now you're leaking the data, and the next time you get Twitch Yuumi, they're gonna walk up to lane because they're gonna think that you're going mid.
And now you might. Now they're not gonna sure if you're going to mid.
Who knows? Next time I might just kill the enemy top lane alone and swap.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. Lane swap. You can see like their first game of playoffs, like the enemy jungle's not buying refillable, he's buying a pink and putting it around mid just to make sure from bot side that you can't get ganked level 1.
Yeah, so I think I'm in. Neon, EUphoria MVP for week 7. Credit to you, my friends. I think I don't want to, and again, shout out to Flackid. Great week, great Draven game.
This guy was smurfing on his Draven.
Absolutely smurfing, absolutely popping off. So credit to him and credit to G2 for finding the 2-0. But this week it will be Neon. And honestly, dude, well earned. I don't think you're getting Twitch Yuumi again anytime soon, but like that game was sick. Actually, Sivir games are boring as hell to watch. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like you do your job, you push
boring
R.
to play too.
Yeah, but like
you've been riding high on the OPs. Zeri, Sivir, Twitch. You're feeling pretty good on the bot lane champs.
I do my meta research. I'll be honest with you. I do my homework. Yeah. So I'm a good student.
You do your homework. You're getting those A pluses. Fantastic week. And then of course, shout out to Flackit. I think the big thing for Flackit is like G2 finally fixed. I don't want to say fixed, but they always had early game mistakes. But this time the early game was a lot cleaner. a lot better, a lot stronger, and they looked a lot more like
Yeah.
decisive in how they're approaching it.
And that consistency is going to be important to track because when we spoke to Yankos before, he was like, early game's the issue. Next week, early game was fixed. The week after that, early game was bad again. But I like that we're seeing a little bit of, we're seeing more than one style when it comes to G2 drafting, a little bit at least, where you've got these more Sivir, bunch of divers kind of composition. Then you got this Draven, much more early game focused. I like it. It shows to me that G2 have a lot of faith in Flakked, which is what I want to see going into playoffs because I can't imagine another playoffs run where they just get like Jarvan, Ornn, Ahri every single game. I just don't think teams are going to let that happen.
Honestly, the fact that they can just pick Draven on 1-2 now kind of puts them in like a way better position heading into the Super Week because now there's just so many threats in the draft when you're going against G2 that you have to consider that how do you actually win the draft at that point, you know?
Yeah.
Or like
so many things you have to be careful for.
how do you draft well, you know? Because they've shown that they can do these things, and that makes them to me like a more scary opponent to face.
It's true. They can like 1-2 everything. They can 1-2 Draven, Sylas,
I just feel bad because
Talia,
on the one hand,
Gwen.
we've got G2 who are first picking this stuff and it's working. And on the other hand, you have Rogue who like have been trying all this stuff and it's just failing.
it's just failing.
Like G2 are just like clearly right now trying.
Yeah.
They're both trying to like show us more, and Rogues have just like fallen back on their face so many times. But we'll see how it works. I would love to use the rest of the time, Neon, to talk to you about Misfits and kind of this team and this whole situation because it's a weird situation that you guys are in. And despite the knowledge that like this team is going to be gone next year, you guys bring in Zanzara. You start popping off. You're looking great. You already told us the team atmosphere is good. What is the focus? What is the ambition for you guys? Are you guys taking it one game at a time? Is there like an overarching goal? Do you guys feel like this is like the Michael Jordan last dance one more time? We got to make it work. Like, what's the vibe?
So first of all, I just kind of want to address the situation, and I kind of want to say that it's honestly like up. Not really for me, but for some of my teammates, I have like rookies who, to me, and they're on like longer contracts, right?
Yeah.
And to just like be playing your split and then be scrimming and then just like learn in between the scrims that like you don't have a job next year, kind of. It's like
during scrims.
Yeah, I remember it was like we finished the scrim game. I like look at my DMs and someone messaged me this like rumor leak. Is it like Miss is being sold? And the next thing that happens, like the coaching staff comes like, yeah, guys, Miss just told us we're being sold, etc., etc. I don't feel like you should be as a player who thinks that. Who thinks that they're not worrying about their job just yet should have to like experience losing their job at a split like this, right? Like during the split like this.
Yeah.
So that was like not to me because I mean I've been in a very similar situation before, and who knows if I would have been with Misfits next split. But to my players, I think it was a big shock, and props to them for like handling it well and not like letting themselves be affected by it.
Yeah.
And Zanzara honestly was way better of a change than I expected. As I said, he gives us a lot of room in draft because his champions are really good in the meta now. Makes it very easy for us to draft, makes it very easy for us to play the style that we want, makes it very easy for me and Vetheo to carry because he's so sacrificial in his own gameplay just for his teammates to be ahead. So we've kind of found ourselves a really good identity right now. And it's been a ride.
How's the growth with Irrelevant been as well? Because like he's one of the players that we don't really talk about much on Misfits. It's always
he's one of those players that I think Misfits admitted, and remember that the org decision, the coaching staff made this decision to sign him for an extended period of time. You can obviously GTD's out there, but without knowing this information, but this is clearly a guy that they wanted to invest in for a longer period of time. And so, talking about the growth, I think is important.
So just like any rookie, you never really know what to expect of them, right?
Yeah.
And I think the Irrelevant experiment has tremendously worked out. I think this guy is really good and should be in the LEC because I have seen him grow as a player, and he has grown very fast as a rookie. He's doing really well against anyone. He can hold his ground against anyone. And it's just been like very interesting to see how fast a player can develop, because like to me, when I see a rookie, it's like I don't expect them to be good in their first year. I don't expect that because that's just not how it works, right?
Yeah.
But there are outliers, and I think he's one of them. I think he's doing very, very, very great for his first year, and like big props to him. I think he's like underappreciated, like the kind of like the unsung hero of Misfits right now.
Yeah, is he the kind of person who's like really open-minded and is like taking in feedback like a sponge, or does he have a little bit of like an ego where he's like, nah, pick me this matchup?
No, he doesn't really have an ego. He's like very nice and chill guy to work with. So I'm just like happy for him, and I'm like low-key surprised that he was as good as he is.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's tough, right? You never know with a new org coming in what their strategy is going to be. I think like BDS is a great example where people expected them to come in and just like ball out and like immortals themselves up a super team, and obviously they went for a very different approach.
A lot of super teams in Europe these days.
Yeah, I mean, like people really love to. Yeah, I don't know. That's a bigger discussion. Anyway, so we'll see what obviously Heretics want to do, and like I think the other cool thing about this is that you and Vetheo, not the sale or any part of that, but for Misfits, right, and specifically for you and Vetheo, it feels like you guys are like fighting really hard. As like the primary carries, and everyone can see you're the guys are the primary carries of this team, to like solidify yourself in that discussion for like generate like a generation of LEC talent and like locking yourselves in that shortlist. And I think that's what's so cool, because I look at the teams around you that you are beating that have, you know, bigger names like these, you know, Vitality, these Fnatic, these super teams that you guys are outperforming, these teams that you're going toe to toe with who have these big, huge historic names. And like a lot of people looked at Vetheo and said, hey, this guy's great. He's like the next European mid lane talent, but he wasn't there yet. And people looked at you like, oh, you're like solid, maybe middle of the pack, maybe rising star AD carry. And I think the fact that you're able to put up such fantastic results so consistently over these last few weeks, and hopefully for the rest of the split for your guys' sake, I think it's really cool, because you're basically just watching, we're watching you force your way into the discussion for top European players. Not because like you were on a good team for one split where you like, or on a legendary team like G2 or Fnatic, where you just instantly become a part of the discussion based on the caliber of, you know, organization that you are playing for. But you guys are literally like pushing through the line to be like, look at me, you know, like look at what we're doing. And I think that is my favorite part about the Misfits story is like, one, obviously there's a lot of tension around it being like the last split, blah, 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 but it's just the way that you guys are like pushing yourself into the conversation for top players in your respective position.
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout my career and like here on Misfits, we've all kind of like considered ourselves as like the underdogs in the grand scheme of the competition. And it's like the role that, or like, it's like the role that I believe I was like set to play here is like, I like being the underdog, right? Because it's just like, if people assume that like, you're not the best or you're bad, and then you win, it's like they're like, wait, how is this possible, you know? And I kind of like that, because I know where I'm at skill wise, and I know that I can beat these teams, and I am happy that with Misfits I can finally show it, and with like the rest of my team. So it makes me really happy that we're doing so good.
Do you feel, out of curiosity, do you feel like you and Vetheo have pressure on your shoulders? Because around you have like a rookie top laner in his rookie split, a rookie support in his rookie year, a jungler that's just been moved up from the other league. Do you and Vetheo kind of take the reins more, or like direct more in scrims, or kind of have more of a voice in the team?
Yeah, I think currently like me and Vetheo have like probably the most voice when it like comes to like the direction that we want the game to be played in. And I think we both feel like responsibility and the weight on our shoulders to not only like kind of like guide our teammates, but also like be there and be the carries that they need. And I think it's been working out really well for us.
It's crazy, isn't it, to just think about it? Because you guys are tied in a position with Vitality, which is now the amount of God knows like how many achievements that team has from the players alone.
Yeah, individual players. Obviously, I mean, you got a world champion and
you got
people. You know, I mean, that one's, to be fair, that one's like a little bit, you know, like sub whatever. But still, it is an achievement. It matters.
G2, who just won the split and went to MSI. Rogue, who are like the most consistent team in a regular season, and then Misfits, who have a rookie top, a rookie year support. You and Vetheo next to Zanzara, who was last place last split and then moved to the ERLs. They're tied with them and beating them, and like.
But the part that, like, the thing that makes this really cool to me actually is the fact that, like, for you and Vetheo especially, and again, I just love this story, so I'm going to talk about it too much, but, like, it's not like a breakout Mad Lions, Elyoya, Kaiser, like, we've, like, found the magic formula, and credit to, obviously, Mad coaching staff and those players to make that happen. That is still a great achievement. I don't want to take it from them, but, like, you had been around.
Yeah.
You had been around, and you had been on, like, you know, anywhere from middling to, like, pretty good
UOL
teams, you know, starting from UOL to Schalke, like, and very rarely do we see players in like the middle of their career, I guess let's just say you're in the middle of your career, like really, really rise up. Like that doesn't happen very much. Usually like you come out swinging or you join like a great org and that's how like you rise. But you are on a middle of the pack org that you have. God, I love it. It's too good. I'm sorry. The narratives are just too good.
Storylines.
I mean, basically, I was in a position where, at least I felt like I was in a position where if I don't do good this year, I'm not going to be in the LEC anymore. Just because like I've always kind of been there and I've always like kind of been doing fine. So like to me, I said like, fuck it, I'm just like gonna go all in. If I fail, I'm out anyway. And if I succeed, I'll finally be able to like prove to people what I'm worth. Simply because like not everyone gets the luck to like start their career on like a top team. Like there are people who have had that luck, and I don't think I've been one of them. I think I've made some like questionable decisions of like which team I joined back in the past, and it's like affected me. And like this is like all that I wanted to do this split, is just like to show off that I can compete with the best and I could easily be on the top team. And that's just kind of the message that I want to leave the split.
Oh yeah, dude.
True. Yeah, because a lot of rookie players, especially like in ERLs, I mean, I've been there, you've been there. It's like the second you get that one LEC offer, no matter what team it is, sometimes it's not a top team, you just jump on it and you grab it. And sometimes you're jumping onto a sinking ship and you can't really bail out the water, and then it just looks like that's it. As soon as the ship sinks, you're back to where you started. So a lot of players do fall into that trap.
I mean, I have a big history on being the guy who jumps on the drowning ships. I jumped the Unicorns of Love drowning ship. I joined the Schalke drowning ship, and I did join like the Misfits drowning ship back in the days after the super team. So I felt like
this man a ship.
Yeah.
Where's Captain Jack Sparrow? Oh man, that's tough because UOL went out. Schalke went out.
Yeah.
You just...
Yeah. And also to like, you mentioned Mad Lions and their coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
I think the Misfits coaching staff has played a big part in like our success with the rookies. And I don't think we would have been in the same position without them.
Yep.
And like, that's the thing. Like when you have rookies, like I feel like a lot of teams just get a rookie and they just like kind of like leave him there, and they like don't take care of them outside of the game. And I think what Misfits has done well, we actually have a lot of staff, by the way. What they have done well is that they have made sure that these rookies feel very good in like their positions that they're in, and that they're like primed for success, right? Because like the thing that you don't know with rookies is like how do they react to stress? How do they react to this very competitive environment? How do you provide the emotional support that they need, and like just like in general take care of their well-being? And I think Misfits has done a great job at like facilitating all these things so that my rookies can perform to their levels in like their first year of playing even.
And I love that. And I just want to say, if you are a team, there's a lot of team managers out there who probably look more at public opinion than they should. I know this. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're a team manager, you're the person involved in hiring decisions in esports, I really encourage you to look at the people at the Misfits organization. Obviously, Heretics is the first port of call, but any team out there, LEC, LCS, opportunities for these people, because like you giving that praise in the spite of it is a big deal. And obviously you don't have to say that kind of stuff. So when people do say it, I want to make sure that it sticks, because it is so easy to have coaching staff and people behind the scenes, or rookie players in the case of Irrelevant, slip through the cracks when they could be Mersa too, and they could be big talent in the future. And I'm not saying you should just blindly take my word for it. I'm saying you should look at these players, you should talk to the people that they've worked with, you should talk to the people around them about these players, because it would be a tragedy to me if an org that has done so much with a roster that from the outside probably isn't like the big bucks roster. I don't know. I don't have those numbers. I'm not sure.
It's
to have it then to have so many of these pieces then slip through the cracks. That would suck.
It would just be so unfortunate. It just happens too often with whatever it is, players, coaching staff, whatever it may be. It's like how many trophies are in your cabinet?
How many trophies in the cabinet?
What's your CSD at 15? Oh, it's positive. Oh, welcome, buddy.
And obviously not everybody's like that, but I think that obviously public perception does carry a weight, and not that public perception is against Misfits, but just making sure that we're doing our part to make it clear that this is like
due diligence,
a huge team effort, and it's like and people deserve their chance, their interview, their research, whatever you want to call it. They deserve that shot.
It's true though.
So shifting away from that, because I don't want to stay in that area for too long. Looking forward, specifically this next week, you guys need to win basically like one game to 100% lock things.
You could win 3 games and maybe lock
world.
Yeah, maybe this is the time.
Don't think about it.
It's so crazy. I can't even allow myself to think about it. It's it's that level of crazy.
I think that's one of those things where it's like it's far-fetched, possible, but not worth stressing about and putting pressure on yourself to achieve. It's fine to have in the back of your mind, but like saying, if you were going to a pre-game speech, it's like, guys, if we win this game and we win the next one, we're gonna go to World. It's like, okay, calm down, buddy.
Honestly,
let's beat BDS first, and then we'll talk about Worlds.
I think I would have been better off not knowing that the scenario is possible, because what it does to me just creates like additional pressure,
Yeah.
an additional like thing to stress out about and feel bad about if you don't make it happen.
I think it's one of those things where you just have to figure out a way to like just tune it out of your head by where you are now and what you've achieved so far. But yeah, looking ahead, you've got BDS, you've got G2, you've got Fnatic. Saturday, Sunday, definitely a lot harder. The Friday's like a quote-unquote warm-up, but I wouldn't want to say that because then Excel just lost to BDS.
I mean, also we said this. We literally every person who's come on this podcast after a good week has then immediately because Jankos came after a bad week, then he had a good week. EUphoria came off after a good week, and we were talking about how great his team was, and they immediately
lost to Astralis.
They literally said on the podcast, "I don't want to say anything because we're gonna," and then he lost anyway. So
wait, is this like an actual curse here?
It's not an actual curse. You pro players are so superstitious. It's not an actual curse. I'm just saying, don't disrespect BDS.
It starts with BDS.
Don't disrespect BDS. I can't.
Man, okay.
You can't tell pros there's a curse. No one will ever come on the podcast again.
If we go 0-3 this week and we don't make playoffs, I don't think you guys are ever getting another guest. Sorry.
You're never coming on EUphoria again. So if you're wondering in spring next year why it's just me and Drakos for an entire season.
If someone wants to calculate pro player win rate in the week following their EUphoria appearance, please
that's
don't,
actually a good idea.
But someone's going to do it, so I might as well ask for it, and then I can pretend.
I feel like it's definitely negative.
Shut
because it's definitely negative.
Stop talking.
You'll be fine.
Hopefully.
All right. One win at a time. Any thoughts coming into this week of competition? Any thoughts on last week of the LEC that you want to get out there before we wrap up for the day, Mr. Neon?
Any thoughts? I mean,
you could go any direction you want, brother.
I don't know, man. Like when I look at the standings, this is like not what I had envisioned going into the split. Like honestly, at one point, this split, like when I think we started at like 0-4, and last year I thought it was gonna be the exact same. Like last year in spring, I finished like top 4 or top 3 with Schalke, looking really good.
Then that roster, that was when Abba was before Abba left for 100 Thieves, yeah?
Yeah. Then suddenly there's changes. The org is starting to get solved. We make changes. Boom, last place, unwinnable. Fact for the offseason. And this split, it was looking like the exact same. And I was like so mentally falling into that same thought pattern. I was like thinking like, oh, it's all the same thing again. I was like starting to feel really bad about it, right?
Yeah.
And to like then bring us up to this point where we go basically from 0-4 to 9-6 in this level of competition, like I'm still like mind blown about it. And to even think that I might be 3 games away from Worlds.
No, don't think about it.
It's like the craziest narrative
don't
ever.
Think about it. Don't think about it.
And listen. And I've been for like crazy narratives, okay? I've been on the Schalke miracle run, right? Yeah. And I think this is even crazier. So like...
It sounds like your career and your history of career is like extremely low lows, but extremely high highs. And there's no middle ground. Because like, you're right, you started off 0-4. You've been 9-2 in your last 11 games. You know, like Schalke, miracle run. UOL, Misfits, Schalke setting spots.
Let's not talk about UOL.
I think I have like, it's a roller coaster like Marco. It's never been stable. And the one thing that I don't like about that is that it implies that I'm on a high right now, that it follows a low, you know?
Oh yeah.
So
the stonks are going to go down eventually.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's not now. Not this split.
Hopefully the high hasn't reached its peak yet, and hopefully the peak is Worlds.
How high can you go? There's no Worlds isn't on the table yet. Let's see how high you think you can finish in playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
I love the idea that we just don't tell a pro. There's like a guy who's like literally never watched competitive league in his life, and we just don't tell him Worlds exists because we don't want to let it go to his head.
It's like playoffs don't exist either.
Playoffs don't exist. You just play regular season. Oh, you made now playoffs. You can play playoffs. It's like, what's playoffs?
That's so cool.
Oh yeah. Oh, now you made what's Worlds?
What's that? It's just a group stage. It's just a group stage. Like quarters. This is the finals.
Just protect pros from themselves by just never teaching them how the competitive ecosystem works.
That's true, because then they can never think about it.
Would be a cool experiment.
Would have worked on me if you told me about it.
Yeah. So coming up this week, we'll just talk about Friday because there's a whole mess of a week. It's a super week, 3 days back to back. BDS versus Misfits, big game for Misfits to lock. Vitality, SK, Rogue, Excel, similar positions, bigger for Excel as they're fighting to claw in. Fnatic, Astralis, again, very important. Mad G2, the big banger for the top of the table. see you can come out on that one, see if G2 can tie them up.
It's just basically watch every Astralis game. If they beat Fnatic, keep watching them. If they beat Mad, oh my god. Watch the XL game if they beat Rogue. Watch the Fnatic hype train if they can keep winning. That's the 3 teams you need to really watch.
Once teams have locked, we'll talk more about seeding. But until we've locked a top 6, every Fnatic, Astralis, and/or XL game is a kind of a must-watch.
Yep. It's everything really. I don't know what the head-to-head's like between these teams, but
I don't want to. We'll figure it out for this weekend. Yeah.
Beats Rogue and Fnatic beats Astralis, then it's a 2-horse race, But if XL lose and Astralis win, then is it Astralis? Is it just Astralis?
I'm telling you, the more I think about it, the more I think it might just be Astralis, which is, I don't know. We'll find out. Tell us who you think is going to make the top 3 at home. This has been Euphoria Season 10, Episode 8. Neon, dude, thanks again so much for being here. It's bright and early. You woke up so early to be here.
I love the shirt as well. Misfits colors, but also Rick and Morty.
Bam. I love Rick and Morty.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, this has been Episode 8. We'll see you guys later.